Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I want to help someone out there and let you know that demons are real. The kingdom of darkness is real. I'm going to share with you guys a part of my life that I went through, and like you, I didn't really believe too much in God, and I definitely didn't believe in Satan, and I thought it was a joke. And part of me believed in God, but for most of my life, I never believed that Satan was real. I just thought it doesn't exist, it's not real. So in my life, some years ago, I went through an experience that was quite horrifying. I took a shamanic plant medicine in the hopes that it was going to reset my mind, reset my nervous system, heal me of depression and a couple of other things that I acquired following a childhood of abuse and difficult circumstances. You see, I was diagnosed with a disorder called depersonalization disorder, and I had done a bunch of therapy on myself. I had managed to overcome it, and it involved a lot of work, including separating from my abusive home and parents. Just a lot of healing and a lot of work. Something happened to me to re-trigger me to come back into those symptoms again, and that's what actually led me to, it's called iboga, which is the shamanic plant medicine that I was sucked into taking, because it stated on their website that it can help to cure people of depersonalization disorder. And so, me being how I was back at that time, I always wanted to do what I wanted to do. No one was going to stop me. Once I had made a decision to do something, that was it. And leading up into that experience, I had a number of people try to warn me not to take this plant, warn me not to go ahead with it, and I just ignored the advice. There was one person that I had become friends with who was also planning to take this plant medicine to help with his problems, and he told me that he had gone through with it and that he took the dosage recommended and the treatment recommended by the website to help with his problems, and that it worked out well for him, that he was cured, and he was so happy that he was doing things differently in his life now. And so this was the last thing that made me decide that I was going to do this for myself. So the time came where I decided to go ahead with this treatment, and I ingested the full dosage that was recommended for me to take, and it was the most horrific experience of my life. I fell down on the floor. I felt as though the dissociation I was experiencing turned into 100-fold. I felt dry heaving and I was continuously vomiting, and it came to a point where I had absolutely nothing to vomit up. I could not get up and walk. My vision was completely distorted. My body was shaking. I felt as though my brain was on fire. It was zapping. I did not get those visual hallucinations that you're supposed to receive, spiritual insight whilst you're going through this treatment. I got none of that. It felt as though my brain was being sped up times 100. It was the most disgusting experience of my life. I eventually ended up in the hospital. I stayed there for about 5 days. The doctors were monitoring me to make sure that I wouldn't go into heart failure, or that my brain would begin to have seizures. And I honestly felt like my brain was getting raped. I was getting raped in my nervous system. I also felt as though something came to my chest and just like forced its way into my body, but I just pushed that off to the side, and I thought it must have been just because of all those symptoms that I was experiencing, what I was going through. There came a moment where I believed that I was dying. I started to float to the top of my body. I started thinking about how this is going to affect my family. I didn't want to upset anyone, so I tried my absolute hardest to stay in my body, to stay there. Though I was in agony, I just kept fighting it. I eventually came through that experience. Following that, I was not the same. I felt like my brain was still going around and around in fast circles. I had visual disturbances, messed up neurological symptoms that I could never get diagnosed or helped with. Felt like my brain chemistry was completely messed up. My mood was constantly all over the place. And I literally wanted to die, and I had wished that I actually did die that night. I had to live like that after that experience. So that led me on a journey of wondering, who can help me? How can I be healed of this? I went for a large number of brain scans, many doctor's appointments. They could never find anything. The tests would never show any kind of damage. And then I ended up going on my computer and searching for healers that could help me. I ended up finding a place in Brazil. It was a spiritism center. I believe the famous healer, his name was John of God. So I ended up going to this center. I was convinced that he could help me. And so I went to this center, and as I passed the medium, he told me that yes, he could cure me, and that it would take a certain amount of trips to go back there, 3 trips in total. So I stayed at this center and I attended regular sessions that they were having. He would perform spiritual surgery on me. I would sit in their current rooms. At those times, yes, I did experience a small reversal each session that I went to of those symptoms. And eventually I ran out of funding for me to be in Brazil. I ran out of the finances. And so I had to go back to Australia. I had received some improvement, some change. My vision improved. And as I went back to the plane, something happened, and I associated that with a chemical sensitivity to the air in the plane, like the gases in the plane. And as I got home, I was so disappointed because some of the healing that I had received reversed. And I ended up spending a couple of months again, saving up a large amount of money just to go back to this spiritism center. And this process went on for a number of years, that I would go back and forth to this healing center, receive some improvement, come home, and things would happen, and I'd lose that healing. I'd lose it. My vision went back to the way it was. I'd still be experiencing these symptoms. And one time, on one trip that I went back to this spiritism center, I'll never forget this, but I was leaving one of their treatment sessions in the middle of the road where I was riding my bike back to my posada. Something came in front of me, in front of my body. It was like a portal opened up, and an invisible hand came out and poked around the exact area that I had been experiencing these symptoms, and that this injury had happened to me when I had taken that shamanic plant medicine. And that hand actually recreated the same problem that I had had prior to going to this center and prior to all the healing that I had received. I went back to my posada. I sat on my bed and I cried my eyes out. The following day, I went back to this medium. I told him what had happened. He didn't believe me. He said that was impossible. That was also where it started, that my hope was being chipped away. My faith was being attacked. And I started losing faith in this healing center and in this healer. And so after that trip, I left in complete unbelief. I was so shocked at what had happened to me on that pathway of being stopped and experiencing something opening up in front of me and actually reaching out to my body and causing whatever it was that I was experiencing in my body. So I left and I arrived home, and I began looking up other healing centers, other different types of black magic healers, witchcraft healers, Santeria, voodoo, even God as well. So I ended up spending many years going back and forth to different healers. I even went to Spain and I attended a ritual where I paid a large sum of money because I believed that this voodoo priest was able to do a ritual, and he had managed to convince me that what I was experiencing was caused by a demon. The only way out of it was to do a ritual and to negotiate for him to let me go. Throughout these years, I was getting broke, cheated, lied to, losing my faith and my hope slowly by slowly. Initially, I was very faithful and hopeful that this problem would be resolved by going to see this spiritism healer in Brazil. I just kept going to darkness, going to these dark healers, even when I went to different churches to be prayed for. Because I went a couple of times and I didn't see the results straight away, I just gave up on that as well. And I kept going back to these healers and black magic places was also because I didn't believe in Satan. I thought, this dark magic, black magic was actually more powerful than the light. I didn't believe in sin, I didn't believe in Satan, I didn't believe in demons. And it wasn't until I had experienced not only that moment of being stopped and something coming out of a portal and reaching into my body where I started believing that maybe demons are real, but I also had a couple of other experiences that totally convinced me that there actually are demons out there trying to harass me. I had another experience when I was at that spiritist center where I had received a spiritual surgery, and after, when I went back to my posada, the rules were that you had to stay in your posada for 24 hours after receiving a spiritual surgery. And I was so happy because I had received healing after this surgery. The symptoms had reversed. My vision became a bit more clear. I was so hopeful that finally this is going away. I can't wait to go back there again. And as I was in my posada, it's like something in my body woke up and it began to shake me exactly in this area of my body, and it recreated the same problem again. And I was very scared. I was very shocked, and it was at that moment that I knew that there was an evil spirit or a demon around me, in my body, or just hovering around me, that was following me throughout this whole journey. And that's when I realized that the symptoms, whatever had happened to me, was not an actual physical problem. Something was actually causing this, something evil. And no matter how much it actually caused me to become ashamed, and I became like really shameful. I didn't want to share this experience with anyone because they might think that I'm crazy, or might say, oh no, that's not true. But yeah, what this experience did to me was cause me to isolate, withdraw, not share with anyone what I was experiencing and what had happened to me, because of fear of being judged, fear of how unbelievable it was. And so after a number of years of going to these so-called healers, dark healers, witchcraft healers, I lost all my faith, I lost all my hope, I lost my belief that things could ever change, that these symptoms would ever go away. And I began to feel hopeless, despaired, and I just wanted my life to be over. I wanted things to end. I did not see a way out of this situation. Eventually, I just had this idea of reaching out to God and saying, I don't know if you're real, Jesus, but I think I need your help. And from that moment on, he lit a path ahead of me. I ended up going to a church and just sitting there listening to what they were saying and listening to the good news that was being spoken. And I just thought, okay, I'm going to hang on to this good news because it's better than the hopelessness and the despair that I was used to being in for many years. And eventually I ended up going to a particular church, and the pastor singled me out and called me up to speak a prophecy over my life. and everything he spoke to me confirmed what I had gone through. It validated what I had gone through was real, and it was at that moment that I knew that Jesus was real, that he had never left me, and I felt validated that demons were real as well. So I don't know who you are out there. Maybe you are going through exactly what I went through, where you're feeling as though no one believes you. You've been attacked by evil spirits and you feel like you've got no one to turn to, and you feel even yourself like this is completely unbelievable, that you don't even want to believe it yourself. But the truth that has been revealed to me, that Satan is very real, that he intentionally tries to blind our minds from knowing that he exists, because by us not believing and thinking that he's not real, thinking that sin isn't real either, he's able to come in, actually really hurt us. Well, I hope this has spoken to someone else out there who may be feeling like you have no way out of a situation. You definitely do. Don't give up.